some pretty big cliff jumps. This one that we were doing was quite safe, relatively speaking. It was about maybe 10, 15 feet, and we wanted to find something that was just a little bit higher. So on my second jump, which was from right here, I decided this jump, I'm going to make sure everything's safe. I'm going to go first. So I step back, and I run out, and I jumped, and I splashed into the water, and everything was good. And I started to swim around, and you take a look up here, this is basically where I jumped. This is what the landscape looked like. Not me, but exactly where I jumped. And when I came up, I actually tried to get up right here, realized I couldn't get back up out of the water there. I would have had to climb up the rocks, so I got back in the water, and I swam around here, and there was a little staircase that took you back up to the top. So as I got back up to the top, I started walking back, and I'm cold because it's windy, and even though the sun was shining, it's still cold when you get out of that water. And so I get back to where I'm going to jump, and I'm yelling at my friend as he's in the water below, and he's telling me just to hang on. He's yelling up at me. He's like, wait. And I'm like, 22-year-old male. I'm pretty competitive. I just finished my first year at university, and all I'm thinking in my head is he just wants to get an extra jump in ahead of me, or he doesn't want me to get an extra jump in ahead of him. And I'm like, no, I'm coming. So I tell him, I'm like, move. I'm like, get out of the way. So I back up, and I go running forward, and I jumped, and I came crashing into the rocks. So this is what I saw. Now I'm going to take you basically through the moment, but I want you to see what I saw. So when I was standing back, basically where this picture was taken, that's what I was looking at. So I thought I was in the same spot. His voice was carrying up the rocks, so I thought he was right below, which would have made sense, because the spot I had jumped from below, you could have stepped off and you would have been fine. During that time, when I was suspended midair, I had a few thoughts. My first one was, if you've ever seen a Star Wars movie, I'm going to use the Force, and I'm literally going to hover and fly across. So here I am standing there, and I'm trying to use the Force, realizing that gravity's got its own idea of what's going on here. Second thought that went through my head was, okay, I'm now looking down at the ground. There's no way I'm going to make it to the water. So I accept it. I calm down, and then I had another thought where, and I've had a very difficult time explaining this, and only because it's only happened once in my life. It was as if time stopped, and I was this girl suspended in the air, and the book of my life just opened up in front of my eyes, and I started going through page by page, looking at my past, looking at my present, looking at the future. So this is where I was supposed to jump from, and this is my brother just having some fun at the spot, and that's where I jumped from. So I was about maybe from here to the podium away. And after the book closed on my life, I crashed into the ground. Now, it was a difficult time, but there's so many blessings that happened that day, and that's what I'm choosing to focus on. This is where I was at the top, and this is what I saw. It's kind of hard to see this is what I saw when I was falling. Now, this tree wasn't here at the time, but I basically landed right here. So I actually landed in the rocks outside the water, but I fell back. I hit my head on this log instead of a rock, so I didn't have, I hope, any brain damage. I might, I don't know. Still to be determined. And then my legs actually landed, or when I came back, my legs went into the water. So I was actually able to use the cold of the lake basically as an ice bath. So this ice bath was keeping my legs sort of intact because it was constricting all the blood. I had cut my hands, I had bit through my lip, and at the time I didn't know the severity of of the damage that I did to my leg. And I had 30 days, 30 nights in the hospital. I don't even know how to put this into terms for where I was. My first day, this bandage got stuck on and they had to rip it off. So if you imagine like a Band-Aid, and part of why I share that is because in my book, right at the start, that's what we sort of start with, that just to kind of get it out of the way so that you can relax and read the book. But it was difficult. I was miserable. I had no idea at this time that I was going to be starting the 5 stages of grief. So denial was huge. I was depressed, I was angry, I was bargaining with everyone, with everything. Every day was a battle. Every single day I was frustrated. Every single day I didn't want to be there. And I just wanted to give up. I was fighting myself. I was so angry, I would scream and yell at those nurses. And you know what? They didn't do anything. They were just there trying to take care of me, trying to help me. And sometimes my family got it. Sometimes the people closest to me took the brunt of my frustration and anger. I was in denial. I thought, this is just like any other broken bone. If you've ever broken a bone, you know that, in 6 to 8 weeks or maybe 4 weeks, it's going to heal. And I just kept telling myself that over and over. This is just like that. I'm going to get back to Seventh Hockey. There's a concert in the summer. I'm going to make it there. I'm going to be fine. I was really looking for acceptance of who I was. And I didn't really know what to do because nobody in my life had really experienced that. And I use this information here in this time in my life now to segue into when I talk to kids that are transitioning, or when I talk to kids that are still in the closet about their sexuality. And I can't relate to that as a heterosexual male, but what I can relate to is what it's like to feel like you're not yourself. And so as I started to bargain with people, I would lay in my hospital bed. I tried to change time. I don't know if anyone's ever done that before. I closed my eyes, I would squint real hard, and I would just sit there. And I would replay over and over and over the events. I was like, okay, if I just do this, this won't happen. If I just do this, because I was in so much pain. And I did have moments of success where I was starting to accept myself. And you can see here in this picture, I actually had a smile on my face. And I feel like they were fleeting. There wasn't too many moments where I actually was happy. But that was one of them. And as I started to get out of the hospital, as I started to move forward in my life, being able to be a little more independent again, because I was bedridden when I was here, meaning I'm not getting up to go to the bathroom, I'm not getting up to go and hang out. And actually, this picture here was one of the first times I got up out of my bed, and I was up for about 30 minutes, and I went and crashed after because I was so exhausted. And I felt like I was alone. And in all honesty, I was. I didn't have a support group. I didn't have a community. I didn't go there's a rehabilitation hospital. I couldn't go because my leg was just in so many pieces. I had surgery right away, and then I had 2 more to help fix my leg before I actually left and was able to go home. And that's when I, again, was like, okay, I had to take a look at myself. I had to reflect on where I was. But if I didn't have somebody to talk to about this, I don't know where I would have been. And that's when I started to focus on some other things. Now, I got some really, really devastating news on April 4th, 2010. Brady Cook, Matt's brother, had called to tell me that the cancer had taken Matt's life. And during that time, I just started crying as soon as I heard the news. And I wanted to reach out and talk to Matt and be like, hey, so I heard this, is it true? And during the celebration of his life, a week later, I got connected with people for sledge hockey. And I realized that the support group was there. I just wasn't open to it. I hadn't accepted that I was disabled because I had this preconceived notion of what it meant to have a disability. just as I've been learning, we have these ideas of what it means to be different, what it means to be gay, to be a lesbian, to be bisexual, trans, and so on. And as we learn more about it, we realize people are just people. And you can define yourself however you'd like to define yourself. And by having a disability, I can still play hockey. I can still find ways I can do things and have success. Now again, this picture is just from this summer, and as I've shifted my focus, and I share both these pictures side by side, because as I've changed, I keep setting goals for myself that are within reach. I keep setting goals for myself that are attainable and where I can have success. Now, I played sledge hockey and I was successful. I made the national team within my first year. I played on the team. I got to travel. It actually excited excited a new passion in my life to travel. It was one of my first big trips. I went to Japan. And then I got to go to Sochi, Russia, where they were holding the 2014 Paralympic Games. Now, with this picture, one thing that I think maybe only one or two of you might know in the room, I actually didn't get to compete in Russia at all. This was at a test event, and I was cut as the last cut before the 2014 Paralympic Games. And it was upsetting, for sure. But what had changed is my outlook and my perspective. And so what I decided, I had a passion. I was now a teacher, and I had been subbing while I was playing sledge hockey. I thought, okay, well now I can put my time and energy into teaching. And I thought, okay, time to make some changes. When I had my ankle fused in 2013, I thought, I'm actually a lot stronger now, which is kind of funny. I can put more weight on my ankle. I'm not in pain. My arthritis is more or less gone, minus the weather. And I can do basically anything I want to do now. And I thought, maybe I'm going to go back into stand-up hockey, but I can't go to the Paralympics. I can't compete for Team Canada, which was a pretty cool experience. It's not going to take me around the world. And now I was sort of hooked. I love to travel. I love to see new things. And I thought it could actually help me quite a bit when I was teaching. So I was cut. I needed to identify who I was. Well, I'm a teacher. I'm a hockey player. And I'm a passionate individual. I needed to focus on the positives of what I could control. I couldn't control that I was cut, in my opinion, and from what I heard from some of my teammates, the year I was cut I was probably the best at sledge hockey that I have ever been in my life. And so when I decided to say goodbye to sledge hockey, I needed to set new goals. So my focus was to go and play and compete with the senior AAA Stony Plain Eagles. Now it was actually pretty cool because I got to lace up with a couple former Tigers, Tyler Bunns, Spencer McAvoy. I got to play against guys like Brett Robertson and a few others that I had played against in the Western Hockey League and growing up that had either gone to the Tier 2 route or whatever, and I got to reconnect with those guys, and I thought that was pretty cool that I'm getting to play hockey again. It was senior AAA's the highest level amateur hockey. It's the Allen Cup Hockey League that now I'm actually in Alberta. It's sort of folded, which, whatever, that's neither here nor there. But I also got to play hockey with this guy. So this was one of my new passions. And I don't know if anyone recognizes this guy, but you might recognize this guy. So he was actually my captain my first year playing senior AAA hockey, Ryan Smith. So there he is, he walks into the dressing room, and here I am going from stand-up hockey to Paralympic hockey, back to stand-up hockey. And if I didn't focus on what I could do, focus on the positives in my life, I never would have got there. And it's not to say I did it alone. I had a lot of support. I had the support from Matt that inspired me. Once he inspired me, I joined up sledge hockey. And in that moment of joining sledge hockey, I connected with a lot of cool individuals. Those individuals had lots of disabilities, lots of different backgrounds, and I realized that I wasn't alone. I think are really valuable lessons that I've had in my life. So I learned to accept myself. I learned to accept that I was disabled. I learned to accept that there were things about me that I had ideas about, but they were a little different. And it also helped me to accept other people and their different disabilities. When I look at a hockey dressing room, there's usually about 20 people on a team. Now, when you look at the stats of men, I'll just use for an example, men, and there's some varied stats, or it's maybe 10%, 20% that are gay. So if you're looking, that's let's just say 1 in 5. So on a hockey team, that means about 3 to 5 people are gay. But there isn't a single gay, well actually that's not true. Brock McGillis is the only openly gay hockey player that's retired now, played professional hockey. But there's no openly gay hockey players. So why is that? Does that mean that only heterosexual men play hockey? Well, there's no way. But there's this culture that in society that it's not okay to be gay and to play hockey. And actually, I would even, from my experience with You Can Play, I've learned within a lot of sports. This is my friend, Kate. We went camping at her cabin, me and another friend and her. And the one night we were sitting there around the campfire, she just basically started bawling, and she's a very close friend of mine, and I couldn't imagine why she'd be bawling and why this would be scary, but she came out to us and said, I'm gay. And I thought, it was breaking my heart to see her crying. And I don't care. She's not going to stop being my friend because of that. And I realized like how difficult it was for her to come out to her closest friends because of the way our culture and society is, especially with and around sports. So to me, it's no wonder why there's no openly gay hockey players playing in the NHL, in the Western Hockey League, in the American Hockey League, and so on. Actually, and I will say this, sledge hockey is a little different. I would say that if there was ever a dressing room where I did feel open enough that if I was gay, I would feel very comfortable to come out. And only because I think as we are also different naturally because of our bodies and our different disabilities, we just had a different outlook on life. I couldn't imagine one of those kids struggling, being depressed, being suicidal because they're gay and it's not okay to be gay. And when I look at those pictures, and I've had an experience where this girl comes into class, she's very visibly upset, and I'm like, what's up? She's like, didn't really want to talk. I'm like, okay, let's go. We go over to the room next door. I say, what's up? I don't have any girl clothes to wear. They're all in the laundry. So it was a boy transitioning to a girl. And I thought, why is this upsetting? Why are we still living in a world where it's not okay to just be who you are? Why are we so concerned at what somebody else wants to do? And so I tried as best as I could to support, and I just said, you just got to remember that today might be a difficult day, but at the end of the day, you can go home, you can put on your new clothes because they're going to be clean, and you can make yourself feel comfortable. So even though today is tough, it's just one day. And I hope that as I've been gaining more experience, as I left sledge hockey and joined You Can Play and One Team, and I share these messages now, that I'm hoping that girl found some solace in the words I had and I was able to share with her. And so I've learned through these experiences how important it is just to support and just to be open being open to new ideas, being open to things looking a little differently. Like when I first went into sledge hockey, first went into a dressing room full of disabled people, where people actually looked at me and thought, well, what are you doing here? You're not disabled. And I was like, well, I am, but thanks for not recognizing. And I thought, this is something that if I can have an impact on, I want to. There's another example. It just came up on one of my advertisements. I think it's Mike Sam. He's one of the openly gay NFL drafted players. So he got drafted in the NFL, was openly gay, and as you read on, he's like, well, coming out actually destroyed my career. So he played a little bit on this team, on that team. He played, I think, in St. Louis and a couple other teams and had little stints, eventually going down to the CFL, and his career sort of faded. And he said himself, coming out as gay killed his career. And it's heartbreaking when you hear those things, because at one point, he was one of these kids. So I just really want to emphasize that message moving forward with you guys, so you can take it with you into your organizations, into your workspaces, into your teams or your kids' teams. How important it is just to support and be wholly shut down, completely shut down, because they're so used to getting beat up, picked on, bullied, and it's really difficult to see. And so we just work and we try to find solutions, because that's all we can do. The more knowledge we have, the more we can move forward. So this is a picture of me literally crossing the bridge, but also metaphorically, as I have transitioned from athlete, where I was playing with Team Canada, I was playing in the Western Hockey League, to a different life as a teacher, as an educator, and I truly hope to inspire other people. This summer, as I'm no longer competing, and from my travels, I got to travel the world, I'm still facing adversity. I'm still facing challenges. I decided I was going to go on a hike. I was going to hike up to Machu Picchu. And I thought, okay, I'm a pretty athletic guy. Now this hike I was going to do, you can do some really long ones. You can do 7-day, 8-day hikes. I was like, there's no way. I decided I was going to go on a 4-day hike, 3 nights. It's about 65 kilometers. Now I thought, you know what, this won't be bad at all. This is my feet at the end of it. By the end of this hike, I could barely stand. I actually was so exhausted, I went into the bathroom like right after this, and I threw up. And I actually was like sick. The people that I was traveling with supported me. If I needed to go a little slower, walk in the back, people would hang out and walk with me. And again, I share that because I couldn't have gotten there by myself. But when we look past all that, we get to see the goal. We get to see what we can accomplish, whether it's a championship, whether it's a hike, a personal achievement. We can accomplish so much when we work together. Now, it doesn't show my whole group, and I have some group pictures, but I couldn't have done it without the people there helping me along the way. And again, these are total strangers being sympathetic to my situation with my leg and my body. And that's why I share that is with you, because you can do the same thing. So, I had a career-starting injury. It started a whole new life for me. It put me on a different path, a path that I never thought I would go on. I learned a lot about myself. I learned a lot about other people. And truly I learned about acceptance. And as I learned to accept myself for who I am, I learned that I could accept other people for who they were and who they are. regardless of their circumstance, their background, and so on. During this recovery process, I actually started writing this book, The Ups and Downs of Almost Dying, and I co-authored it with Michael Belzo. Because I learned in my experience that the world's not going to change for you. When I first broke my legs, I wanted my friends to come over and sit on the couch with me and watch TV, because that's about all I could do, like right at the early stages, because I needed time to heal. And they didn't do that, and I got really frustrated, and I lost a lot. So I went from being quite a competitive hockey player to a disabled athlete, somebody who couldn't even walk. Got myself back healthy enough, went back into stand-up hockey, played for a couple of years, transitioned out into the classroom full-time, and then, I mean, if I could make it into a career, I would love to travel the world. But part of traveling for me isn't just to go to somewhere new, but to really challenge myself, to push outside of my comfort zone. That was part of why I went on that hike. I could have taken trains. So you take a bus, then from the bus you get on a train, and then you take other buses to walk up to Machu Picchu. I could have done that, and it would have been a really easy way, but I wanted to challenge myself. I wanted to see if I could do it. And so in my book, we talk a lot about that, because adversity, it's going to be a constant and or occasional companion for each of us throughout our lives. The question is, how are you going to react to it? So as I look to close out my talk here with you guys, I really want you guys to be open to that new experience, open to that individual, open to people for who they are, and being able to share that message, because if it wasn't for Matt sharing his light, I wouldn't be where I am today. And I learned that you don't have to break your legs to share your story. So I could have shared my story regardless. So when we move forward in our lives, in our experiences, the more education we have, the more knowledge we have, the more we're able to look at different understandings of people. We're able to look at different experiences for ourselves. And we're able to battle and overcome that adversity that faces us. Because it's just a perspective, it's just a choice that you choose to make. So I challenge you to make your stumbling blocks stepping stones and to push through your adversity.